In the last video, we looked at the characteristics of effective paragraphs. Specifically, we looked at several methods of developing your ideas. This video is going to talk about how to structure those ideas using different patterns of organization. The basic patterns of paragraph organization are chronological, sequential, spatial, topical, and climactic, although climactic is really just a subtopic of topical. Let's start with chronological. Use this pattern when the topic is best understood in segments of time, such as relating a historical event. In English class, you can use this pattern to summarize a story or part of a story. Narrative essays primarily rely on chronological order. At this point, you can pause the video and look over the transitions that are typical of a chronological order paragraph. Let's look at an example. School has increased in difficulty over the years. When I was in kindergarten, life was carefree. All I had to do was finger paint, make crafts, and take naps. During my later elementary years, subjects became more complex. For example, math went from addition and subtraction to multiplication, division, and fractions. Junior high furthered my skills, adding subjects such as algebra and biology. Today, I continue to be challenged by advanced courses. Chemistry, calculus, and Spanish make up part of my daily schedule. Overall, my kindergarten self could never have imagined the complicated subjects I am learning today. So notice some of these transitions. When I was in kindergarten, during my later years, today, and then there's an embedded transition here. Junior high furthered my skills. The next pattern of organization is sequential, by order of steps. It's similar to order of time, except it's broken down into a series of steps that someone would need to take or follow to understand your topic. So we'd use this pattern when explaining or analyzing a process. Each main section of information represents a main step of the process. Again, pause the video and read over the transitions. Let's look at an example. The writing process has 4 distinct phases. The first is invention, which is aided by any number of techniques, including free writing, mind mapping, and outlining. After invention comes the first draft, the stage where the ideas start to take shape. Many writers use a sentence outline at this stage to see where they need to cut and where they need to add material. The next stage of the process is when both the second and third drafts are done. Here, ideas and structure are refined, and the thesis is revised until it becomes the unifying idea of the paper. Finally comes the last stage, that of editing. Writers should take care at this stage that all sentence structure and punctuation is correct, and they should make corrections to documentation format as needed. Writers often repeat these 4 phases more than once, making the writing process more cyclical than linear. So again, notice the use of transitions. So we have a good structure here, sequential structure, but we also have a coherent paragraph through the use of these transitions, and we also have a well-developed paragraph following up general statements with specific points. The next pattern of organization is spatial. You'd use this pattern when you wish to create a mental picture for readers of something that has various parts distinguished by physical location. Paragraphs organized spatially can describe areas and objects in a variety of ways: top to bottom, left to right, or geographic location. All areas and objects should be discussed in relationship to each other. Let's look at this example spatial paragraph. The Texas spirit of fun and hospitality lights up Paseo del Rio, the San Antonio Riverwalk. This festive and popular travel destination shimmers with color and light. Along the left bank, 2 lines of brightly colored cafe umbrellas, tropical red, Cancun blue, emerald green, lemon yellow, shelter outdoor diners and adorn the cobblestone walk. Above the rainbow rows of umbrellas, white lights strung between oak trees along the walking path glimmer softly in the dusk. Miniature white lights rim the eaves and roofs of the buildings behind the diners and illuminate the graceful drape of the oak branches bending over them. In addition, colorful lights trace the arch under the footbridge, and luminaries set atop both sides of the bridge's stone gray railings. The lights, the water, and the spectacle of color create a festive atmosphere, Texas style. So here's an example of a spatial paragraph. Notice how each section or each area is fully described before the writer moves on to the next area. There's no going back and forth. The last basic pattern of organization is topical, and this you just use when the patterns listed above don't apply. So use this pattern when you need to make specific points about your topic. This structure is commonly used when writing a literary analysis, along with other applicable structures. Compare, contrast, division, classification. Those we will get into in the next few slides. So basically, when all else fails, topical order is the way to go. Here I've just included an outline for a topical paragraph. You'll see that it doesn't fit into any of those other established patterns. Our topic sentences. Like many rapidly growing cities, Bowling Green faces a number of challenges. Housing shortage, traffic issues during commuting hours, and pollution. Through foresight and purposeful planning, our community can hopefully limit the problems that have come along with urban sprawl. So here we have a topic sentence that sets us up to hear a number of challenges. We have the 3 challenges, followed up, or a general statement about the challenge, followed up with a specific fact, story, anecdote. That's where you would do your methods of development. And then you have a concluding statement to let readers know that you're wrapping up this particular topic before you move on to the next one. The last type of paragraph organization here is climactic, and I wanted to skip back to this because climactic just means you put these topics, these subtopics, in order of importance from least to greatest, or from weakest to strongest. You always want to end a paragraph or an essay with your strongest point or your most important point. So if I look back at this little outline of a topical paragraph, I can see that these need to be put in a specific order. I don't know that I necessarily did that when I was writing the paragraph, because my opinion would be that the biggest problem in Bowling Green right now is probably traffic issues. So I would make that my last one if I were to rewrite this example. But in general, when you're writing a topical paragraph, you want to order your points from least to greatest and end with your most important point. Now, there are some other patterns of organization, and I want to take a minute and explain something very important here. Throughout the semester, you're going to write a series of essays. You will write a compare-contrast essay, and you'll write a division classification essay. But these structures can also be used just in a paragraph to help you get your ideas in order. So you can do them, on the small scale in a paragraph. But then looking at a larger essay, if you're primarily using one of these patterns of organization, then we classify that essay as, one of these types. So if you're primarily comparing and contrasting, we would call it a compare-contrast essay. So let's start there. Compare-contrast, you have a variety of things that you can do here. You can compare by similarity. You contrast, show differences, or you can go back and forth and both compare and contrast. And there are several different ways, or a couple different ways that you can organize a compare-contrast. So this pattern compares and or contrasts two subjects according to predetermined criteria. Like a topical paragraph, this pattern uses a general to specific structure, making general statements and following with specific examples. Typically, writers order these points by importance, with the most important stated last, so it would use climactic paragraph structure. So use this pattern when you need to determine the similarities and or differences between two subjects. This structure is commonly used when writing a literary analysis, but this structure is used really in almost every subject. So the topic sentence in a compare-contrast paragraph should do the following. It should identify the two subjects. It should indicate whether you are comparing or contrasting in the paragraph, and then provide the point of comparison or contrast that you're making in that specific paragraph. There are two ways to organize a compare-contrast paragraph. The first is block. So you have two things that you're going to compare or contrast. You start with your topic sentence. You talk about everything for subject A, and then you talk about everything for subject B, and then you have your concluding statement. So that would be block. You don't go back and forth between the two subjects. Point by point is organized by point instead. So you would have your topic sentence and then the first point of comparison or contrast, how it applies to the first topic, how it applies to the second topic or subject. And then you'd have your second point of comparison or contrast, how it applies to subject A and how it applies to subject B. So we'll cover compare contrast much more in the weeks to come. Here's an example of this outline, what it would look like in an actual essay outline or paragraph outline. So our topic sentence is college is more expensive than high school because of tuition and living expenses. A block paragraph would organize it by talking about tuition and living expenses only to do with high school first. And then it would switch to only talk about college before it gets to the concluding statement. Point by point, however, would organize it by the two areas of expense, tuition and living expenses. And you would go back and forth. So you would do tuition in high school, tuition in college, living expenses in high school, living expenses in college. So you can either organize it by your subjects, your two things you're comparing, or you can organize by the points you want to make about them. The next pattern of organization is cause and effect. So by action and then consequence. So this is also called causal analysis. Causal analysis explains the cause and effect relationship between two or more elements. Causal analysis may primarily focus on the causes of something, the effects of something, or discuss both causes and effects equally. There are 4 possible relationships you could explore in a causal analysis paragraph. Single cause to single effect. For example, if you are caught speeding, then you will get a ticket. Single cause to multiple effects. High fuel costs result in higher food prices, loss of jobs, and individual hardship. Multiple causes leading to a single effect. Survey, question, read, recite, and review lead to good comprehension. Multiple causes to multiple effects. It was raining and I missed my ride, therefore I got soaked and missed my test. So you can see there's several different ways you can write a cause and effect paragraph depending on what your topic is. So here's an example. Conflict escalation is often the result of expanding the issues and engaging in personal attacks. So we've got a cause here, expanding the issues, or we've listed 2, expanding the issues and engaging in personal attacks. So we're going to talk about the cause A first, expanding the issues and the 2 effects, how it causes conflict escalation. And then we're going to talk about the next cause, personal attacks, and the 2 effects of personal attacks and how they create conflict escalation. So this one would be an example of the multiple causes and multiple effects. So the last example. All right, another way to structure a paragraph is problem solution. Problem solution pattern divides information into 2 main sections, one that describes a problem and one that describes a solution. In the problem section, the writer identifies different aspects of the problem being discussed and offers evidence of these problems. In the solution section, the writer identifies a potential solution and supports the effectiveness of the solution over others. So this pattern is typically used in persuasive writing when the writer's general purpose is to convince the reader to support a certain course of action. The pattern is designed to compel the reader to make some kind of change in opinion or behavior by establishing that a problem exists, then providing a solution. So it's your basic, kind of on-demand type writing, persuasive. Sorry, this is so fuzzy. The number of people who are homeless in the United States is too high. So we've presented a problem. And then we've got some specific details that outline this problem further. According to the website, some reasons why people are homeless are decreases in public assistance, such as Social Security, low wages, and mental or emotional disorders, such as severe depression. So there we've got our established problem. Now we're going to get into the solution. Although there is no true solution to prevent homelessness, people can help. A few ways are by donating money to the National Coalition for the Homeless, donating an item from the NCH website wish list, or purchasing a book from the NCH website. In conclusion, donating money and or items can help organizations bring awareness to the public, which could lead to more aid for the homeless. So basic problem solution structure. All right, the last structure is kind of a fun one. I really enjoy when we write the division classification essay. This is where you take a broad category and you break it into parts and examine them separately, and then you go through the process of grouping things into similar categories. So division is the act of separating something into its component parts so that it may better be understood or used by the reader. When you think of division, think of dividing, separating, or breaking down one subject, often a large or complex or unfamiliar one, into its parts to help people understand it more easily. While the principle of division calls for separating one thing into its parts, classification systematically groups a number of things into categories to make the information easier to grasp. Without some sort of imposed system of order, a body of information can be a jumble of facts and figures. Let's look at this example paragraph. A city walker will notice that most dogs fall into one of three categories. First, there are the big dogs, which are generally harmless and often downright friendly. They walk along peacefully with their masters, their tongues hanging out, and big goofy grins on their faces. Second are the spunky, medium-sized dogs. When they see a stranger approaching, they go on alert. They prick up their ears, raise their hackles, and perhaps growl a little deeply in their throats. I could tear you up, they seem to be saying, but I won't if you behave yourself. The third category is made up of shivering, neurotic little yappers, whose shrill barks could shatter glass and whose needle-like little teeth are eager to sink into a friendly, outstretched hand. Walkers always wonder about these dogs. Don't they know that people are capable of squashing them under their feet like bugs? Apparently not, because of all the dogs a walker meets, ankle biters are the most irritating. These are just three of the types of dogs one might encounter while walking city streets. So I really like this example paragraph because it has such specific detail. I'll pause a minute here and show you how it has, this topic sentence. We know we're going to get the dogs that a city walker will encounter, and they're going to be categorized into three categories. So we know there's many, many breeds of dogs. But this author is taking all the breeds of dogs that you can see out there on a walk and fitting them into three categories. And that provides structure for your reader and helps them better understand your topic. So then they make a general statement about each type. Big dogs, spunky medium-sized dogs, shivering neurotic little yappers. So we've got kind of a general statement, and then each of those are followed up with more specific examples or more specific description. So this is a great paragraph example of how to elaborate on your ideas. And then it ends with this nice concluding statement. So those are just some basic patterns of organization that we will practice over the course of the semester.